Guys, you guys don't know that. That's and had to move back home, had to downgrade completely, back to nothing. And also, you get to learn something about the African environment. Is that the eldest is the one with the money. Speak on it. So I moved from being the oldest one who contributes to being, I think I was the second on that board. I was not important anymore. So I had to quickly move myself out of that and get back to my first position. I'm a first born at home and I'm an alpha male, I'm an Aries. So I don't like people looking down on me, Part of the movement called THAT, the hookup dinner. Some of you might have heard of it. And it literally gave birth to quite a lot of entrepreneurs in South Africa. You look at your lazy Makotis, your skinny spoons, your native Nossis, your Tsapo gene makers. What are these guys? And I think the beauty of a platform like that was not that it's brilliant. It's got nothing to do with that. I think from an African perspective, we contribute based on our gifts in the ecosystem. God gives each of us gifts accordingly, and mine was to just bring the tribe together, and then the rest of the magic took place, And when you see the success stories that have emerged over the years, you realize that as long as you show up for your purpose, things will show up in their own way. And very fortunate to have worked with some of the biggest brands on the continent. South African Breweries was one of those companies for me that, baptism of fire. I often say that, they can get behind a rock. They can find a town with one person that living under a rock, they will get the beer there. They're really good at this, So working with them, I was able to learn how to source entrepreneurs across the African continent. We've got about 7 markets. I've traveled into some of the weirdest places on this continent. I've traveled to one street towns where everybody is drunk, and I've had to find talent out of such places, And it's something that teaches you a lot about Ubuntu and community and humility. Here we've got, I'm a light. We're bright, man. It smells good here, right? Just get out of it and see what's happening in rural South Africa. And in the 26 townships that we speak of in this country, right? There's a lot of challenges that we face, infrastructural problems, historical problems, all sorts of things, and a lot of hopelessness, And I've made it my life journey that those are the spaces I want to focus on. I do a lot of work in the rural development space as well as in the township space across the African continent. I'm a lover of Africa. Like I love Africa. I'm going to be in Zambia on Friday just to connect and see with my tribe over there. For me, it's that. Like, if I can get on the plane, car, doesn't matter what I'm traveling with, and I get to my Buddha and I get to meet my people, I know that we're getting somewhere. And I think there's such a missed opportunity for a lot of South African entrepreneurs who are closed off to what is happening outside of the borders. So the message that I want to almost leave, if there's anything you take away from today, is that as a township-based business, remember that I'm not saying as a township business. You must take that hat off. That's not your label. As a township-based business, you must treat yourself as an export-ready business that can export that talent, that service, that good, whatever that you're packaging as a value proposition, and maybe you can get it into Harare. Maybe you can get it into Lusaka. Maybe you can get it into Lombo. That's a massive opportunity. And just in terms of the businesses that I'm now involved in, quite a few, but one that maybe will make sense to this room right now, apart from the capacity development business on the SME development side. It's a funding business. We funded this business about 5 years ago. It's called the People's Fund. We finance purchase orders and we partner with the entrepreneurs, walk the journey with them. It's a business that we've been very fortunate as a black-owned business, 80% black-owned right now, and we've raised a couple of rounds in terms of finance. We've done just over 300 million revenue, right? We never pictured ourselves. We never pictured ourselves building a business of that nature as black boys, right? But we realized that as we came together and collaborated and put together our skill set according to the different skill set that we had around the table, so much more that could be done. And the reason I share this is because a lot of you here should be collaborating. A lot of you here should not be running businesses individually. some of you here should be setting up stockpiles. And in those stockpiles, you should be taking one product and getting out into Malawi, getting it out into whatever, Zambia. Some out there's somebody who needs those products, but sometimes we get too stuck trying to serve the Soweto market. You know, treat yourself as an export readiness business, and you will find that what you're doing is needed in Maputo, is needed all the way up to the north of Mozambique, and you are sitting here feeling hunger when there's a demand for your product out there somewhere. So treat yourself with that and have the hunger to travel and be exposed to the African continent. So purchase order funding, and it's called the people.co.za. That is the business that might make sense to the room. Thank you.
I have been dying to meet him. I've always seen him on Facebook, on TikTok, and I think it's a something who am I? I have always struggled to introduce myself for one reason and one reason only, because I believe all my achievements and everything that I've done does not define me. But however, I know for a fact that I am a township girl. That's who I am, fundamentally, before everything else. I am a township girl who was trained as an economist, who has worked in the DTI and all other sectors of economy as an economist, but turned into a businesswoman. I have a series of businesses that I've started and as well. My stunt in business, I'm an economist by training, as I've said. The first business that I had was a consultancy business. I was consulting in international trade, import and exports. That's what I was doing. I always say to people, there's certain, if today there could be a commission of some sort, economic commission, I think I'll be one of the people who will appear in that commission, because there are industries. When I was a public servant that I have killed by virtue of being in there and making decisions. And though that business is textiles and clothing, I'm so sorry. I wish everyone forgives me. As I was saying, my first business was in consultancy. I was consulting in import and export, focusing on Saku, Namibia, Lesotho, Namibia, Lesotho, and Swatini, in all those countries. I was helping foreign companies. Basically, that was what I was doing. Naively so, I was assisting foreign companies to access funding from government, but it gave me money, and I was the richest woman on earth at the time. Fast forward, I ventured into fashion. Believe it or not, I've got a label called Nanas and Nunus, which is trademarked, by the way. What I used to do, I used to manufacture kids' clothing, but for the export market, not for the local market. I think the advantage in me was the fact that I used to work at the TTI, so I kind of understand the international world. So I really focused on the international market. And then something happened to me, and I was not happy with having 3 people in my backyard manufacturing the ladies, and I wanted to be big, and I ventured into laundry, dry cleaning and laundry. I stand here to say I am the first woman in South Africa that is qualified, qualified as, if you want to call it, a laundress, a dry cleanist, and above all, a person who can clean wedding gowns. Wow. I ran my business for about 11 years, and I am a multi-award winning businesswoman based on the legacy dry cleaners. Yes. when I was running my businesses and the other businesses that I still run is when we build businesses, we are not building businesses for now and then. You are building businesses for the future. When you start your business today, you need to know your exit strategy. Why are you doing what you are doing? Are you building an asset of value? Are you building a business that will give you a lifestyle? Or are you building a legacy value? And then things happen as they happen. I had to. Mistakes, as Dr. Rocha said. My laundry business was liquidated. No shame. There's no shame in there. Why are you shaming me? I'm an entrepreneur. Never shame me. It was mistakes that he has mentioned. We would learn from him and everyone. And then now I am running a mentorship and a coaching business. And that's what I do. And funny enough, as Ndati has said, in the coaching and mentorship business, I happen to attract clients outside South Africa. The very first client I attracted in mentorship was in Kenya. I remember the first time I traveled to Kenya just to see my client. I was on backpackers. Just to see a laundry in Kenya and building up, and the woman is doing well. And this is who I am. I am doing.
All right, thank you so much. This is my least favorite part, talking about myself. I think as Buso has introduced, I'm an accountant, unfortunately, by profession. Did my articles, PwC, finished, but I've always loved business. Jomo Solo, they were asking him, why don't you give up? My brother, soccer is in my blood. If you cut me, there'll be little soccer balls coming out. So I think business is in my blood, so if you cut me, there'll be little businesses coming out. I started as an accounting, practice. Went horribly wrong. I also had to go to home, and I also as a firstborn, I got relegated because my younger brother was working. Before major decisions are taken at home, they consult him first because he's the one who's got. They say he who's got gold makes the rules. So he's got the gold. So I had to go back home, start again. But started again, went into other businesses, had so many businesses, walked away from some of them because they were just not making money. Some were doing very well, some are still doing very well in property. But the one that I'm passionate about is the Laura Center, where we actually train entrepreneurs. We basically are in the process of being accredited for diploma in entrepreneurship. So we work with entrepreneurs throughout the continent. I think one of the beauties about COVID is we had to go online, and when we got online, there were students all over the continent, Botswana, Kenya, a couple of students from Ghana. And I think what I picked up from the experience listening to them also is they actually look at South Africa as a benchmark. They look at us, they say we've got the best of ever so many things. I remember one of the entrepreneurs out in Kenya, he said something that was a bit stinging. When I was there, we were having a conversation. He says, we are convinced that the South African economy is built by white people. So I'm like, but why do you say this? Because you guys are not here. We see white people coming here and building these businesses here, but you guys are not here. So we are convinced that actually these are the people that will build the economy. So it was a bit of a bitter pill to swallow, but I think we are coming, and I'm slowly seeing a lot of entrepreneurs, some of them being through thought, going out and opening stores in other parts of the continent. So the sky is the limit, really, and we've got the opportunity, whatever South Africa has got the proud South African stand, it's something that's easily being received in other parts of the continent. So my advice is don't limit yourself in the environment that you're in. People are looking for you and they're looking for your products. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks
The panelists, I think now
for the better sense of who's sitting in the panelists. But now
let's get into the crux of the matter in terms of township economics, right? To someone who's asking themselves, I'm sure there's been quite a number of people that have been Googling and got an answer from Google what is township economy. But if you can just, not too detailed, just give an overview of what township economy is, so that people around the room can clearly get it and clearly understand it. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the takeaways, right? And how am I going to contribute based on what I've heard today, you know? So I'll start with you, Dr. Labs. Good.
Thanks. I'm a simple guy, so I think that, when you think about townships, the places of opportunity, unfortunately, in the current makeup of how they are, the places of extraction. This is where goods and services are thrown in, capital is extracted out, and very little is left for the people that are there. But the biggest currency of the township is us, the people. There's no economy without people. We are poor every day, the toilet, middle, all of these things, right? And when you think about the behavior of a human being and the things that must take place on a daily basis, you must take a bath, you must do what products are you using? The clothes that you're wearing every day. How many of us here are wearing clothes that are made by entrepreneurs next door? Right? It's that level of being intentional. Like, are we circulating the money that we have in the environment that we're in before we even think about taking it to town? I mean, some of us go to Split or wherever to go and buy our shoes, but there's somebody right in the same neighborhood who makes shoes, right? So for me, when you think about it, any economy, it's just about the people. Like, if there's people there, there's potential, and they're waking up every day, they're still breathing. That's an economy.
For me, it's very short. Township economy is nothing else but self-love. Self-love. Self-love as a black person, self-love as a township person, and nothing else. And to add to that, to me, township economy is nothing else but it's for us and for the benefit of us and the generations to come. And it is an ecosystem that we have to benefit from it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think when I look at townships, I see opportunities, right? I was in some conference, and I was networking, and this white guy, they were talking amongst themselves, and he says to the other that if you want to make money in South Africa, look at what black people consume and provide it to them in big amounts. And we see it with if you look at Capitec Bank, ShopRite, the bulk of their customers are black, the bulk of their employees are black, but the owners are white. So they see these opportunities in townships, and they're intentional about going to townships and opening all these malls. And banks are open. I mean, growing up, the bank in a township was like, what? The risk and all those things, but they have actually seen opportunities. Unfortunately, it comes across as if we don't see those opportunities ourselves. And I think we just need to change that mindset to sort of say, we need the best private hospitals in townships, the best supermarkets in townships, the best, retailers. We need those in townships because, there's an opportunity there. I talk to some of the guys. They say the highest grossing turnover ShopRite in the country is in Deep Sloot. Right? I was talking to this other boy I was mentoring. He works for Romance Pizza, and he says the Romance Pizza that's making the most money in the country is in Attribute. I couldn't believe that those are white owned. So they see opportunities in us. For some reason, we don't see it. And I'm hoping that after the session, as you go out there, you start taking this market very seriously. You don't have to go to Sandton. can still where you are, because that's where the opportunities are. Thank you.
All right, thank you for those remarks. And I think you are mentioning one of the paining issues, the fact that you've got malls that are built in the township, you've got products in those malls, you've got huge retailers such as your ShopRite, your Pick n Pay. But when you get to your ShopRite and your Pick n Pay, how many local products that have been sourced from the township do you find? Right? But then it's also important to understand, and also for the entrepreneurs to also look at what are the opportunities, right? Which then brings me to my next question to say, what's the role that the entrepreneurs around the room can play in tapping into the township economy?
I think, you know, we are the change agents, guys. This thing is not going to change unless we change it ourselves. We need to be intentional, but we need to be intentional about this. You know, how we are going to solve issues of unemployment and all those things. And I know it's not our job as entrepreneurs to solve unemployment, but it's the end result. As your business grows, it creates those jobs. But you know, the status quo is not going to be changed, unfortunately, unless we change it. And we need to be intentional about, you know, there's this, we need to change perception that if it's black people offering a product, you know, you have to be very worried about the quality, you know, the delivery. We need to change those. We need to be the ones who are saying, I'm going to run the best healthcare clinic in Deep Sloot, for instance. And be intentional about how you price your products. Are these products accessible to the people? I was mentioning one day she does sanitary pads, for instance, and she was trying to get it into Centurion and all those things. And I said to her, but you know, how about you relook at your business model? Maybe instead of selling a whole pack of sanitary towels, you know, find a way of packaging them in 3 or 4 packs, you know, and then price it according to the people in Olivenwood that can access it. And now she's making more money from Olivenwood and Deep Sloot because of how she managed to repackage her products. So if you look at successful businesses in the country, you realize that their biggest market is in townships. All right. So I think that's where we need to play, and we need to be intentional about it, and offer first-class products, you know, at prices that are accessible to the people, and they actually get the. We are intentional. We are going to open our campuses in townships, right, and we offer some of the best programs to be found. So the idea is we are the ones who are waiting for, no one else.
Thank you. My response to this would be a personal story, number one, and number two, and maybe try to answer this thing at a high level, be it a political level or socio-economic level. Those are the 2 points that I want to touch. When I was in varsity, UWC, I used to have a friend who happened to be in India, or an Indian guy. This guy used to be a dealer in America. He used to, everything that you needed at school at the time, you would go to Hamza. We used to call him Hamza Mohammed. Mohammed would, I want a textbook. Mohammed would say, I'll give it to you. What he will do, he will go and source it in his community. And everything that we would work Congress and all these, and speakers and everything, we would buy from him. He's a student. And one day I sat down with Hamza and said, Hamza, how do you do that? Where do you get this thing? He said to me, you know what to do? We, as Indian and Muslim people, what we believe in is 1 rand must circulate 64 times within our community before it leaves. Do we, as black people, have the same mentality? My next story, I'm a storyteller. When I was starting my laundry business, I was so fortunate, very, very fortunate, to to have a mentor. You guys, you know this gentleman, Rob, the owner of Nando's. He's a Jew. He gave me good business lessons, but the same sentiment he echoed. When I wanted something, Rob would say, go to this, and I was like, Rob, what is this? He's like, if the rand must circulate 64 times before it leaves. So, when we see other nations prospering, it's not a mistake, it is an intention. Okay? Let the rand circulate. Yeah, guys. Let's take a simple thing like a funeral in our communities. How many funeral parlors are there? How many women are baking? How many florists do we have? But because I am Jojo, I would want to go and get a florist at Many Main. Okay? The other thing that I wanted to answer the question is, one thing that we are not realizing as entrepreneurs and as Black people, that there are two forces. There are two forces that are pulling each other. There is an established market or the commercial market, which wants to come into our township, get everything they could get, and leave us with nothing. And it's not the first time. They did it pre-apartheid. They did it, they looted our mines. It's the same strategy, but it is different. And we are closing our eyes on it. It is not by mistake that our malls are flooded with the shop rights and everything. They are here to take the name. So we need to look at that first and say, how do we become the developers? Because in the township, no one can tell me there's no one who can develop. Here is development. So let's look at it at the political level, guys, and see what can happen. We can produce anything and everything, but let's look at what is happening. Because decisions are not made here at this level, decisions are made at the higher level.
Powerful. I'm a big believer in community. And I believe that these things are inherent within us as Africans. Ubuntu is not something we learned from the West or something. We have it. And we already practice it. The average township community, right? And because we know each other, we protect each other. You know that you're not safe unless your neighbor is safe. We know that if there's a Nyaope boy in the street who's coming to do harm, we mobilize as a community very quickly and we sort it out, right? So we've got inherent traits that we should be leveraging. And quite often what we do is that we've got a very negative self-perception of ourselves. And the unfortunate thing, if you get into social media or anywhere else, it's actually us. And when I say us, I'm talking about Black people that are talking negative about Blackness. White people, Indians, they're not typing that stuff because they know they're going to get into trouble. It's us. So negative self-perception is the first problem that we have. And then we think that we don't collaborate. That's also false. The average Black person in this country will only ever interact with Black people. Majority of us are not going to come across white people because of the environment that we're in. Did you know that there's people in Soweto who haven't left Soweto? Never mind, they haven't taken a taxi to town in the last 20 years. But the Soweto, and they're comfortable because everything is there. So there's inherent good things that we have that we can leverage, that we can apply into our business environment. And because community is at the core of who we are and what we do, how do we apply these business principles? That's what we must ask ourselves. And we often want to make examples about external parties. So for instance, I'll give you the example of the Solidarity movement, which is the Afrikaner movement, right? Under them, they've got groupings like AfriForum, Outer, and a few other organizations. There's only about 500,000 Afrikaners in this country that are actually paying a membership fee into that thing. It's about 50 rands a month, if I'm not mistaken, or 60 something rand. And that means they collect about 81 million rand a month. This is close to R1 billion a year. Monthly fee. We already do stock files. It's nothing new. So they're not superior. What we lack is organization and leadership. That's something we can sort out pretty quickly. We can sort it out if we want to. So now we must speak to intention. Do we want to? And are there tools that are available in the marketplace for us to do something? I want to give you a practical case, right? In May of 2020, we're at the height of the lockdown. We're all sitting there looking at Facebook because nobody can leave the house, right? You guys remember that?
Yeah.
You know that in June we collected R1 million through Facebook. No advertising, nothing. We set up a stock file, we threw an idea out onto the public eye, and I said, look, I'm always having calculator entrepreneurs. If 1 million of us collected 10 rand each, you know those posts must. No, I mean, I decided to put up a post and say, hey, we can launch our own franchising center. Any of you heard about it?
Yes.
The franchising stock file. We launched it. By end of June, we had collected R1 million. By end of the year, we had collected close to 5 million. We had launched the first business by the end of the year. We had launched the second business in the next 6 months after that. And it still failed. Terrible. It failed. First business that we launched, it was in Benoni, wrong location, and we bought a franchise, right? Second business that we launched in Soweto did amazingly well in Middlelands at Middle Point, and then we got looted in July. We still made 350,000 rand in the first month before those lootings. So buying power and organizational power of raising capital, those are not the problems we have in our communities. Get that out of your heads. We don't have a capital issue. We have an organizational issue. I can speak about these failures publicly because we were able to be transparent about the process, right? And also you must be able to walk away from failure and you must face your community. And you must give each other grace to fail. It's allowed. That's how we learn. The learnings that we gained out of that, there's many more things that we've started. We've got a bank, we've got about 1,500 people that contribute 100 rand a month into our stock file, and it's actually a cooperative financial institution right now. We've been doing this for 4 years, and it's going to be a bank. Equally owned by black people, and it funds the purchase orders that I keep talking about. So I'm saying we can do it. There's a simple platform, it's called stockfella.com. Please check it out. It's founded by a black entrepreneur, Tshepo. He's already collected over 200 million rand on that platform. He's burst that type of capital on that, right? And I'm saying to you, as a grouping that is here, that is on the program of TNS, you guys can self-organize. You can start with 10 rand. You'll decide later as to what you're going to do with it. For now, you're not going to have a clear idea. You're going to debate about what you must do and whatever. I'm saying start. Start a group, self-organize, collective in $100, and select a chair, a chairperson, there's 3 positions, right? Treasurer and the other one. Secretary, thank you. Those 3 must be accountable, must be on a clean record, all of these things that you trust about values and character, all of these things. But ultimately, you will get to a point where the ideas start flowing. Because without being an organized group, you cannot fight anybody. That is the problem. It's not that we lack ideas in terms of when we start our businesses. We're brilliant. We're amazing. We're really amazing. We make some of the best things out there. The suit I'm wearing is made by an entrepreneur who's based in the township. Quality fabric. Proper. When I stand on stages, I feel proud and confident. I don't feel any shame that, oh, I'm wearing it's not a township suit. It's not. It's not a township suit. Yeah, I'm proud of what I'm wearing. Because it's quality. Right? But you know why this entrepreneur is going to struggle to scale? In fact, I'm taking him with me to Zambia. He's going to struggle to scale because he's looking at his business through the lens of a township entrepreneur. He should be getting together with other guys who are in the same trade. Negotiate by buying, figure out who's manufacturing this thing, figure out how you can set up a fund to go and buy out or buy at least a percentage of equity into that business. Because majority of these manufacturers are white-owned businesses with old men who are dying. And as they're dying, they're exiting into Australia or wherever, and those manufacturing facilities are decaying. So there's a massive opportunity for us to self-organize, get our gogo betu, who already know it, dog fella, paint the picture very clear. If you can't pitch your solution to a 5-year-old and a 60-year-old in the simplest of form and they don't understand it, you don't have a business. So if you can make those groupings understand what you're doing, if my 8-year-old daughter does not understand what Daddy does, I'm not in businesses yet. So figure it out. But you already have the mechanism. The stock files are there, they've been digitized, there's platforms, there's tools, I've just given you one. There's platforms that can assist you with that, and it does not mean you need to be in the same location. If you remember, the traditional stock file movement says we all need to meet on a Sunday wherever, physically. Today we don't need to do that. COVID proved to us that we can do anything from anywhere. Our stock files, we've got people as far as Dubai in America who are part of our stock file who are contributing because people want to actually contribute back home. They want to build their villages, their communities, they want to do things. But we are not taking the initiative and the leadership. And we're also afraid of being judged. I'm not afraid of being judged. I've failed more times than I can care to count, but I know that it keeps making me leap forward. Because with the next idea that comes out of that failure, with the things that we launch, we wouldn't have launched this funding company had I not tried crowdfunding things all along. You know what I mean? So I'm simply saying we're here as a collective and there's something that we can do immediately. So that we don't become philosophical about this and walk out of here and be like, yeah, man, that was a great one. No, take action now. Log on, stopfella.com, check it out. If it makes sense, organize yourself. You're already in WhatsApp groups, set up one. 10 rand. You've got nothing to lose with 10 rand. Then figure out what are we going to do, guys? Are we going to fund each other's businesses? What are we going to do? Figure it out. But start. You've got a tool that you can do something with. That's where it starts. If we're talking about how do we contribute meaningfully into the township economy, it's about us first self-organizing. The power of that is that when an external group comes, even government, if they decide to pass a law or they decide to do something or they're deciding to hold an imbizo and they're not using local suppliers, you can't fight them as an individual. You can do it, who cares? They know how to manage you. Mara, money grouping, ni formalized. You send a letter, you're like, hey, there's 2,000 of us in this forum and we don't like what you guys are doing. You want to engage us. If you don't, you can't come and do business here. It's very different. Have you seen how the taxi industry mobilizes itself? It's organized, it's formalized. They have membership and they pay for that membership. And I'm saying you can start that right now by starting a stock fund because that is something we all understand and it's principles.
Yeah, I think some of the solutions are really starting to take shape, right? Just from the discussion. Because my follow-up question was going to be around what is it that we need to do practically as entrepreneurs around the room, right? And if you are listening and if you are writing down, I think this is to mention them, to say it needs to circulate, yes, right? Which is the most important one, where we are always competing rather than complementing. Coach will always say, we need to complement each other. We need to build platforms where we'll be able to say, if you are in need of lanyards, you'll find them in this platform. If you're in need of this t-shirt, you'll find them in these platforms. So I think it's very much important that we start being practical about what we are thinking. Because one of the biggest hurdles and challenges, and we'll keep on seeing this over and over happening in the townships. I mean, we saw spaza shops, how they were, how the Pakistan came into the picture, and they were able to form their own group. From forming their own group, they're stocking for each other, and they are helping each other to build each and every spaza that is there. And then we come in and complain, but more than complaining, we go and consume. Right? So it's important that you listen to the conversations around the room. Right? I think we can talk until we turn purple and give you a number of strategies as to these are the things that you can do, but as long as you don't go out and start doing them, it's a problem. I mean, Slebogo just said it now to say there's been a lot of talk to say if I can collect 10 rand, and he started that thing immediately and said, let me do this and see what's going to happen. So whatever that you're thinking, is very important that you formalize the group because already it's a community here. We won't say to you, go and belong into your community. You're already in a community. Ask yourself, what can this community do? Right? And be practical. For the next 3 days, start thinking about those things and then be able to move forward with regards to that. The question that I would like to pose to the panel is the last one, in terms of, now that you've mentioned all these solutions for township economy, what do you think organizations like Technoserve, what role can they play in ensuring that that thrives, right? Because for us, it's very important not to just come in, take and leave, and there's no sustainability. I think our regional director did explain that, to say we want to create millionaires, all right? We don't want to come in again next year or the next 2 years, we are still sitting with the very same people that are really, really struggling for bread every day. But we keep on giving you information. Here's information. But you still come here and you struggle. All right. So it's very important that we then become practical. Right? And I think from the panelists, based on the knowledge, the experience, and what really works, what sort of support can work in supporting township-based entrepreneurs, solutions, what organizations like us, Technoserve, can play in towards those solutions.
Okay. I'm actually thinking. I mean, I've had the opportunity to work with most of these organizations that are, developing entrepreneurs. And I think one of the things that I've seen is some of the limitations that I see with these organizations is we sometimes tend to think that if I throw money at the problem will go away. Just give money to these guys and they'll be fine. I think one of the things that I've picked up in the challenges that TNS and other organizations, what entrepreneurs are actually looking for most of the time is access to markets. Basically, they're saying, most of these things I can do myself, but I need markets. Coke, SAB, they have, they can access anyone anywhere in the world, in the continent, in the world. And I think, connecting the dots between the entrepreneurs here, there's an entrepreneur who needs something in Zambia, there's an entrepreneur who needs something in Rwanda. Connecting those dots, goes a long way to, assisting entrepreneurs to get to the next level. Is, mentorship great, training great, but when you get to a point where, yes, I've been trained, yes, the next step is how do I move from here to the next level? And I think that's what entrepreneurs, the ones that I've interacted with, are saying, how do I access markets outside of South Africa? And with the network that you guys have, throughout the continent, and I think that's where we need to start being intentional about connecting those dots for the entrepreneurs to access other markets.
For me, it's taking the whole entire township economy and have segments in it, different target markets within the township economy. Because as we are seated here, I believe that we are at a certain level, but also what they are forgotten sectors in the township economy. And then the question is, what is Technoserve doing about that forgotten sector? What do I mean? I once read that many of people who are operating in the township economy, they pay VAT, but they don't claim back for VAT. And what is the reason for that? Because they are not established. They are not properly incorporated. So they were not formalized. Okay? Where are we looking as Technoserve? Which market are we targeting? Are we including that market into our strategy? Because a woman that is selling magonias there, clearly she pays VAT, but she is not collecting the VAT back. So these are the little things that we need to look at for me. And also, on top of my head is, I'm speaking under correction, guys, is I think Sileboho has mentioned it, that when we look at the township market businesses, they are not working as a group. they work individually. Is there anything that Technoserve can do on that? I don't know, I'm just asking. Taxi industry is an example, it's got an association. I know that there's an association for funeral and funeral pillows, but what about the people who are baking? There's an association for women who are baking. Is there anything we can do there as Technoserve? What about if you Technoserve have access to the banks? Because I was doing work with the banks 2 months ago. I was surprised to be told by the person who developed products for the banks, the products that we have. And then he told us point blank that, you know what, all the products that we have in the banks are influenced by established groupings. What are the products that we see in the banks for agriculture? We know why. We know why. I'm not going to get any further. Is there anything that you can do in that regard? That's my contribution.
Yeah, I suppose just to close it off on my end is corporate programs that are centered around social responsibility in communities. The key role is to be an enabler and get out of the way. And also don't try and own entrepreneurs. There's a lot of that, and there's a lot of people who have figured out how to hack that system. And you come across somebody calling themselves an entrepreneur, they're serial grantees, they've applied onto like 15 programs and they just keep, and you see them on competitions after competition, they're winning awards, and you're just like, something's not adding up here. You check that business as no business. They just apply, they're SASA grant seekers. They're just professional about it and they're really good at it. It's like a professional beggar in the street. Offer them a job. Thanks. Actually, I make more money this way. Literally, these are the things that happen. So I think the starting point is there's already things that are happening, but maybe less competition and more collaboration amongst organizations. So an organization like Andy is trying to do something around bringing together different ecosystem builders, right? But there needs to be a graduation path of sort, so that if you happen to not be an entrepreneur, you need to be kicked out of the system so that you can go and get a job, so that you can empower the real entrepreneurs. And in empowering real entrepreneurs, they can employ the people who are still grant seekers, right? And I think this thing can work, but it really requires cooperation amongst organizations. If you continue to seek credit through owning entrepreneurs and saying, oh, this year we have 1,000, it doesn't matter, because next year this person is on the next program applying for the same thing. And I see them and I call them out, right? You see it all the time, but we can't stop this pandemic, because it really is a pandemic, because it actually robs people with real opportunity, with real ideas of the opportunity to participate. Wow.
All right. So that was again another mouthful. We're supposed to go into a breakup session, but we don't have time. So how are we going to facilitate the next session? We want you guys now to have a voice, right? I'm sure you're sitting there, you've got so many questions, but I think the most critical ones, we're going to take questions, yes, but start thinking about what are the challenges that you're facing as an entrepreneur, as a township-based entrepreneur, so that we can look at what are the possible solutions towards some of those challenges that you are facing. 1, 2, we are also looking at trying to understand with those challenges, what sort of support can be put in place so that you can assist with those challenges. But firstly, I'm sure there are many questions around. I saw a hand there. Let's start with those.
Yeah, let's take 5.
My name is Litonolo. I am founder and director of the KST2 entity. It's a manufacturer of African staple. What are the contributions that are required to the local and the international market in the manufacturing sector, as much as we're focusing on the township market. Because as much as I'm also part of an organization, which we also started with the 32 idea, Technoserve.com. We also started our own organization, but it's only manufacturing only. We deal with manufacturing. So we wanted to also mitigate in terms of those products that are outsourced outside. Why can't we also build our own manufacturing hub and also start contributing to other places? So that's my question number one. Number two, it's the role that Technoserve can play in the manufacturing sector and the township economy. What can they also contribute to? Because Dr. Mamagola said there, they can also connect the international market. So it's one of the biggest fundamentals that also the entrepreneurs also want to achieve. The first question was township, the manufacturing in the township economy mandate. How do we contribute and require for the local and international market?
If I hear you well, your question is about market access internationally. Okay. And I said I'm using my past experience as a DTI employee, especially in that field. Yeah, there is a task at the DTI which is called export readiness. You go at the DTI, they train you, they assess your product, they help you with the SAPS approval if you're needed, and then on top of that, to test your product, they have exhibitions that they will help you. That will be my contribution to that project.
So do you need an SAPS for them to?
No. Remember,
In the manufacturing sector, there's one that does juice, there's one that does food and sauces, there's one that does logistics, and also there's one that does clothing, but for the Jamaican families.
you go there for export readiness. They assess if you are export ready, and then they look at the gaps and see what interventions they can.
Yeah, just to add on that, I've worked with some entrepreneurs who are in the manufacturing space also, and they've gone through the program that she's referring to. They train you, they assess you first. Do you have capacity? If you go international and you get a big order, do you have capacity? Do you have equipment? Do you have all these things? And if you don't, they also try and see how they can support you. But of course, if your product needs SAPS approved, they'll take you through that process. If it doesn't, you go straight on. There are lots of entrepreneurs who are in the manufacturing space, juice, deodorants, and all those things. And they also take you to other countries for exhibitions. So you go to Nigeria, one of the guys who was actually supplying water, they actually said to him, your biggest market is in Europe, because Europe, they strictly drink bottled water, and they also connect you to the market that side. And once they connect you there, you already know, or you have been trained on how to export those documents, that SARS documents, you know how to complete those documents, and it becomes easier for you to export.
All right, so in terms of the Technoserve side, I think what they've given you is probably the best at this present moment. But we've run a number of programs around manufacturing. We run the workshop where we basically were supporting or still supporting businesses that are in the retail space, business like yours, doing apparel, business like what Dr. Life's Good is wearing. From when you say you want to get into the space of fashion to when you are running a fashion business. So we've done that. We've also supported through the youth ideas development, businesses that were in cosmetics, and also in the workshop there were a number of manufacturing businesses that we were supporting. So we do have programs that are basically supporting businesses in the manufacturing space. But if you want to export, I think these ones would be extremely excellent for now. And then can we please get, because we want to wrap it up, can we get questions around the challenges that you are facing as a township entrepreneur? so that we wrap it up. Anyone with question with?
Okay, my name is Pumzile Mtembu, and I am very much happy that the way you know for me, I feel like I'm at a stage where I needed to hear that. So basically, from where doctor said you must learn from your failures, not success. Because most of the time, as entrepreneurs, we get to see all of the dramas and all of that, and it's one from that other side. And when we fail, we then tend to see it. We are not really making it. We are not really reaching. So hearing that these failures that we encounter is actually the right processes to actually learn from them. So I fail a lot, and I wanted to ask you because it's really okay when you guys said you started other businesses and then you eventually ventured into other businesses and you are excelling in those businesses. Leaving Langamanyama business, leaving the other businesses that you initially started with, and now you find yourselves in these other businesses that are actually thriving and succeeding, and you guys can actually perform into your full potential. How do you actually leave this baby that you started with? That's now you find the one, a new baby that you feel good. There's a lot of markets and there's a lot of growth, and the lessons that you've learned from this other baby you can apply and grow from it. How do you actually and move forward and while living the other baby? How do you let go?
Well, one of the things that I try and discourage my mentees from is starting multiple things at the same time, especially in your early stages. We must always remember that a startup is a faith-based enterprise. It's not a business as yet. And also, a business ceases to exist the moment it runs out of money. And you must be willing to let go. So if you've got abandonment issues or whatever you call it, go for therapy, sort it. But you must be willing to walk away from something that does not work. You must be data-driven in what you're doing, right? You don't operate a business on feelings. Being entrepreneurs applies two things. There's the business side, which is science, proven methodology of how to conduct an enterprise for it to thrive. And then there's the art side of it. The art side of it is you, the entrepreneur, adding magic to this thing, right? And for you to get to a particular point means you're testing with the market. We often create businesses for ourselves. And businesses exist to solve problems for society at a profit, right? It's not a charity show at a profit. So if customers are not buying, you must be willing to iterate. You keep testing. Out of the testing, you take learnings. And sometimes the learnings tell you that shut it down. And sometimes you're not willing to shut it down because it's mine. I've been running this thing for 5 years. What does the bank say? Right? It's a stillborn thing, this thing. It's not a business. Like, leave it alone. Let it go. Right? Go on to the next thing. Take the learnings. The learnings are important. Take the learnings, move on to the next thing. So the fear is your graduation as an entrepreneur. That's why it's hard to find a business school or a university that teaches entrepreneurship. There's many of them, right? But the actual lessons of entrepreneurship are in the dungeons. You can't learn business in a business school. You can't learn entrepreneurship in a business school, sorry. And I'm glad that business schools are starting to realize that. And as they launch it, they launch centers of entrepreneurship. They bring in entrepreneurs, people like myself. They're like, you're the one who must teach this thing. Because when you're dealing with actual real failure in real time, and you now know how to pivot from this thing, right? And never be afraid to change direction. And I think that's the biggest thing here, that we leave a lot of loose ends. Something is dead, and you're still telling people that it's still operating. Just tell them that, no, I used to operate that thing, it's done, I moved on to the next thing. And also we must be willing to build enterprises we're going to exit from. The funding business I tell you about, we're building $1 billion enterprise, and we're going to sell it. And we're going to sell it for billions, like we can see it. I mean, in 2 years' time, it's going to be $1 billion startup, that thing. It's moving at a pace that we've never seen in our lives, right? But we know that it's not ours anymore.
We know that we're building an asset of value we're going to exit from, and we're going to take that money and go and plant and build other businesses in society. Right? So if you're willing to let go.
Just to add to what Sylvia was saying, I get to meet entrepreneurs and they say, this thing is not working, and do I continue? And I always say it's two things, right, that you need to ask yourself. Is it a question of if you persevere with this thing, it will come right? Or no matter how much I persevere with this thing, it's not going to work. So you need to be asking yourself those two questions, right? Sometimes maybe it's wrong, you are early in the market, right? You just need to persevere. Or sometimes you need to say, even if, I love John, when he had these funny things, he said, even if we paid for another 3 hours, they would not win. So you ask yourself, even if I have to do this thing for the next 3 years, it won't work. And if it's not gonna work in the next 3 years, just cut it now. Leave it now. Don't waste another 3 years trying to do something that's not gonna work.
Cool. Thank you. Let's take the last one and then we close it.
Sometimes you need to say,
The mic is not getting, so you can try and speak up or you can come in front.
Oh, okay. No, I will try to speak up. I don't think I'll be on. Hi everyone, my name is Lerati Makaina and I have a travel agency called Paris Travel Group. So I have 3 questions. So the first question is about a lack of information, or maybe a gap between the information and the entrepreneurs in the township. For example, we have township economy and challenges event, which most of the township entrepreneurs are there in the township, and some of them they don't even have resources to come to something. So how do we then bridge that gap where township events like this that are going to be discussing township economies, entrepreneurship and stuff go to the township? The second one is about the challenge that we face as most of township entrepreneurs is having a 9-to-5 work and then also trying to build a business. Looking into, sometimes you find your business is not doing well, so you say, okay, let me go to work and then try to build a business on the side, so we fail all over and then we just say, no, let's just leave this one because this one pays bills. So then what is your advice on that? How can we do it? How do we juggle both? Or how do we even have that gut to say, you know what, 9 to 5 can wait and then let me focus on this? How do I do it? The third one is funding mechanism, edging on the stock fund. Stock fund can be the first one, and then what are the other funding mechanisms that we can use? Because applying in institutions, we have been applying in the past, and most of the institutions that we know about is the government institution that we know what's happening there. You'll have to wait, you'll be told the queue is long, you didn't submit this, when you find out that your company has been funded but the money didn't get you. So what are other funding mechanisms as something Thank you.
You can take one each.
Yeah. The first one around township entrepreneurs, access to information. There's no shortage of information. My events are like on your phone. Get online, search for the thing, you're gonna find it. Whatever you're seeking for, you're gonna find it. You're just gonna start there, right? But at a practical, hang on, let me cover it. At a practical level, look up Ubulelani Bala. Some of you heard of him? One of my mentees, right? Ubulelani runs township-based entrepreneurship events across the country. He's based in Tembisa, but he's everywhere. Right now he's running a roadshow across the country, running rich events, information sessions and stuff like that. So there are events that are taking place. Sign up to those networks so that you can get access